All right, in this video, I want to talk about the upcoming French legislative elections. These will happen on the 30th of June. This will be the first round and followed by a second round on the 7th of July, 1 week later. Now, these elections are going to be held as a result of the European parliamentary elections that happened a few weeks ago. The results there were a disaster for Emmanuel Macron's liberal grouping and a huge victory for Marine Le Pen's National Rally. And I want to take a quick look at the results, give a recap on the EU elections. And if we take a look here, we can see Marine Le Pen's National Rally came in first place with 31.4% of the vote, clearly ahead of all other parties. Macron's Renaissance group came in second with 14.6, followed by the Socialists on 13.8. Now, Emmanuel Macron was expected to give a speech on the night of this election, but many people didn't expect him to call legislative elections. Him, as the president, has the power to dissolve the French parliament once a year, and he has used that power to call these new elections. And it's kind of, not known clearly what the anticipation of this is. Some say that he wants to face against the National Rally in a different type of election with a different electoral system, a different kind of political environment, and hopefully there win back some of the support he lost at the EU elections, maybe face off the National Rally in a lot of districts in a runoff, but it's not looking good for him. And I want to take a quick look at the results of the polls and what we can kind of expect for this election. Now, if we take a look at the map here, this is a map of France based on the results for the European parliamentary elections. And these are calculated with the results of the parties and also the new political alliance on the left. The various left-wing parties, including the Greens, the LFI, the Socialist, and the Communist Party, the four main left-wing parties in France, do have a lot of differences, and there's been a lot of infighting between the four since the last political alliance they had for the 2022 legislative elections. However, they have kind of put their differences aside and decided to form a new political alliance known as the New Popular Front, and this is a broad left-wing alliance that will contest these legislative elections. And if we take a look at the map here, we can see that the National Rally and the New Popular Front of the left are the largest party in almost all of the legislative constituencies in France, with only 7 going to Macron's Liberals, and most of those being in the overseas territories. And so what this result shows, of course, is that it's going to be a problem for Macron in this election, even in the first round. Now, the way the French elections work is there is 577 constituencies. The parties will run in a first round, and the candidates that win first and second place, will go into a runoff in the second round. However, there is one caveat, and that is technically there can be a third or even a fourth candidate in the runoff, assuming they win 12.5% of the voters in the district, not the vote. And this means if there's a 50% turnout, that is, of course, 12.5% needs to go up to 25%, because there's never going to be 100% turnout. If there was 100% turnout, then obviously a candidate that won 12.5% of the vote would win 12.5% of the voters. But when you look at these elections, there's going to be an average of around 45-50% of voter turnout. And so in some constituencies, if 3 candidates reach around 25-26% of the vote, there will be a runoff between 3 candidates. However, in most cases, most constituencies in France, it will be a runoff between the National Rally and the left alliance, at least according to what the polls are showing. And so this is going to be very problematic for Macron's political alliance, because even if we take a look at the polls, it's not very good for him. And if we take a look at the results here for France, we can see most of the map is colored in for the National Rally on the right and the alliance on the left. Now, if we take a look at the last legislative elections that happened in 2022 following the presidential elections, we can see this was a defeat for Emmanuel Macron. His party tied with the then left-wing alliance, the NUPES alliance, winning 25% in the first round, followed by the National Rally on 18%. Now, the numbers here were slightly different from the presidential election. That is because there was different turnout, there's different enthusiasm amongst the party's bases. Marine Le Pen and Jean-Luc Mélenchon as politicians somewhat do better than their parties do, and so for this reason there was somewhat of a different number than we saw for the presidential election. The conservative Republican Party did around 12% of the vote. This was much stronger than their presidential election performance. And if we take a look at the second round, of course, the numbers changed, and of course, Macron's party was nonetheless the largest. They won 244 out of the 577 seats, being by far the largest bloc. However, this was a drop in over 100 seats. They lost their absolute majority in the parliament, their abilities to pass laws on their own, which was a huge defeat. This was the first time that a French president lost this ability, or rather, didn't have a majority by himself in the French parliament since the electoral system was changed. In the past, the French parliament was elected in off years, not on the same years as the president was elected. And before then, it was, of course, normal for there to be a parliament and a president of opposing parties. However, since the change in the 2000s, where the elections are held on the same months, this has not happened before Macron, and so this was a huge development, a huge, kind of upset for victory for especially the National Rally, which overperformed the polls and won twice the amount of expected seats, going up to 89. Their previous record was only 8. Technically, they won 35 with proportional representation back in, I believe, the 80s. However, their previous record with this system was only 8 seats, and they went from 8 to 89, a huge increase in seats. The Left Wing Alliance became the technically opposition, but it was a combination of multiple parties. But we can see that this result was a bad result for Emmanuel Macron. Now, if we take a look at the polls for the election this year in a few days, we can see that the situation is even worse for Macron's party. Now, of course, these are nationwide polls. These are numbers that are going to be an average, of course, of the entirety of France. So there are still going to be some constituencies where the numbers are going to be very different. However, if we take a look, the National Rally is polling at around 33 to 36% of the vote. The Left Wing Alliance, the New Popular Front, is around 27 to 30% of the vote in second place, followed by Emmanuel Macron's Liberal Alliance in third with around 21% of the vote. And this is a problem because, like I said, you need to qualify for the second round to win the seats, in the first round. And if Emmanuel Macron's party only gets 21% of the vote nationwide, that means in a lot of constituencies, his party will be, quite frankly, eliminated in the first round. There won't be a liberal Renaissance candidate. And it's very possible that Macron's party fails to win a majority, or rather the chance to win a majority in the first round, and doesn't have enough seats where they have a candidate in the runoff to win the 289 that they would need in the second. Now, of course, they don't have a majority right now, so it would be a very big surprise, a very big upset victory if Macron's party were able to win a majority. But even becoming the largest party is somewhat going to be difficult for Macron now. He might even fall to third place, and that would be a huge defeat for him as president. But nonetheless, it is one of the main three blocks, and so it will be a very powerful force in this election, regardless of where it is in the nationwide polls. Now, there's another important development, and that is with the conservative Republican Party, the Les Républicains, and that is with their president, Eric Sotti. He actually supported forming a political alliance with the National Rally, but there was a lot of the leadership that was very much against that, and because of that, we have candidates from the Republicans that are running with the National Rally, and others that are running kind of as independents with the party on its own. And so we have a very split divide in this grouping. The Republicans won around 60, 70 seats in the last election. They were the fourth largest bloc in the French parliament. They are still a significant player in French politics. They are one of the two main parties that have dominated French politics until the rise of Macron's party and the National Rally. And even though they aren't as strong as they used to be, they are an important player. And this election has really divided them. And so this is going to be a very important test for France's political parties and the future of France politically. Now, if we take a look at the way these votes translate into seats in the second round, we can see the numbers here. Now, of course, these are very hard to calculate because this is 577 different constituencies that will go into a runoff. Of course, the way the voters vote in the runoff is not all certain. There's a lot of different changes that are going to happen, a lot of possibilities, and so these numbers are very inaccurate. They were inaccurate in 2022, and so this is by no means a gauge of what's going to happen. After the first round, we will get a better picture, but even then, it will be kind of hard to calculate. But if we take a look at the results here, we can see that with the National Rally's 36, 35%, they are winning the most seats, becoming the largest bloc with anywhere from around 200, 250, up to 270 in some polls. So they are the largest party, but they are failing to win an absolute majority by themselves. Of course, Jordan Bardella, the leader of the National Rally, the president of the party, wants to become prime minister. He would require 289 seats to do that. There are some polls that have him close or reaching that. However, in the majority of them, they have him largest party, but short of a majority. Macron's bloc, which was the largest, is going to fall over 100 seats, only to around anywhere between 75 to 100, 120, 150. It is a very big drop in support, drop in seats, and so here we can see the problem. If these polls are anything accurate, then we can see Macron's bloc falling to third place in the French parliament. The New Popular Front is around what they got in the last election. They got 131 seats in the last election in 2022. They're polling at around 100, and in some polls they're polling at around the same, but they are in other polls higher, around 180, 210. So we see a kind of slight increase for the left, a large increase for the right, and a large drop for the liberals. And of course, these are only polls, so this will be kind of an overview of what we can expect to happen. But of course, once we get the results on Sunday, I will do a video on the first round and kind of give a brief overview of what we can expect for the second round that will happen on the 7th of July. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope everyone liked it. If you do, please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you for watching.